In Vietnam, survival often arrived at 110 knots. A UH-1 Huey, dropping into a clearing barely larger than a tennis court. Rotor wash, flattening elephant grass. Door gunners scanning tree lines. That sound meant ammunition. It meant reinforcements. It meant evacuation. Remove that aircraft from the war, and Vietnam changes in ways that ripple from the tactical to the strategic, not in headlines, but in minutes and in lives. By 1968, the United States military operated more than 2,000 helicopters in Vietnam. Across the war, over 7,000 UH-1 Hueys would serve in theater. They flew millions of sorties, troop lift, medevac, command and control, gunship escort, and logistics. The 1st Cavalry Division, reorganized as an airmobile division, was built around the helicopter. Entire infantry battalions trained to load, lift, insert, fight, and extract by air. In terrain that would take hours or days to cross on foot, helicopters reduced movement to minutes. With no helicopters, this meant that troop movement were on roads. Dirt roads, narrow roads, mined roads, or long marches through jungle where visibility shrank to a few meters. Every hour on the ground increased exposure to ambush. Now imagine the Army never selects the UH-1 as its primary utility helicopter. Instead, it relies on aircraft already in service. One alternative is the H-13 Sioux. The H-13 saw use in Korea as a medical evacuation platform. It carried one litter patient externally and one seated passenger. It performed admirably in open terrain, but it had no troop lift capability. It could not insert a squad into combat. It could not move a platoon into a contested landing zone. Another possibility is the CH-21 Shawnee. The CH-21 could carry troops, but it was slower, maintenance-heavy, and less adaptable in confined jungle landing zones. Its tandem rotor design required more clearance to land and maneuver. In dense vegetation, that limitation mattered. Neither aircraft offered the balanced combination of lift capacity, range, maneuverability, and reliability that the Huey provided in large numbers. Without that balance, large-scale air assault operations become difficult to sustain. The 11th Air Assault Division, which later reorganized into the 1st Cavalry Division Airmobile, may never form in its Vietnam configuration. The doctrine of vertical envelopment, inserting infantry directly into contested terrain by helicopter, is delayed or possibly abandoned. Instead of shaping the battlefield from above, American forces return to roads, rivers, and foot movement. Mobility becomes predictable, and predictability in Vietnam often meant vulnerability. Consider the Battle of Ia Drang in November 1965. The 1st Battalion, 7th Cavalry Regiment, was inserted into landing zone X-ray by Huey. Within minutes of landing, they were in contact with North Vietnamese regulars. Throughout the battle, helicopters delivered reinforcements from 2nd Battalion, 7th Cavalry. They brought ammunition. They evacuated wounded. They repositioned units between landing zones. The battle was brutal, but mobility allowed the battalion to reinforce and resupply under pressure. Without Hueys, those same soldiers approach on foot. It takes hours to move through jungle. Movement creates noise. Trails are observed. Ambush positions are prepared. When contact is made, reinforcement is delayed. Ammunition must be carried by hand or convoyed over vulnerable roads. Extraction becomes nearly impossible under heavy fire. Instead of a mobile defensive fight, the battalion risks isolation. Encirclement becomes more likely. The difference is not theoretical. It is measured in response time, and response time determines whether a unit survives first contact. One of the most profound impacts of the Huey was medical evacuation. Dedicated medevac aircraft, known by the call sign Dustoff, often flew unarmed into hostile landing zones. In Vietnam, average evacuation time from point of injury to surgical care dropped to less than 1 hour. Survival rates for the wounded exceeded 90%. Units, such as the 57th Medical Detachment, evacuated tens of thousands of casualties during the war. Without the Huey, evacuation options shrink dramatically. Wounded soldiers would then rely on M113 armored personnel carriers moving over mined roads, or jeeps navigating narrow jungle tracks, or litter teams carrying casualties by hand through thick vegetation. Evacuation times stretch from under an hour to 3, 4, even 6 hours. Blood loss increases, shock deepens, infections set in. Wounds that would have been survivable become fatal. Beyond the physical consequences, there is a psychological one. Soldiers in Vietnam often fought knowing that if they were wounded, a helicopter was coming. Remove that certainty, and morale shifts. Risk calculations change, and the promise of rapid rescue disappears. The Huey was not only a transport aircraft. It evolved into a gunship platform. Armed with door-mounted M60 machine guns and 2.75-inch rocket pods, Huey gunships escorted troop carriers into contested landing zones. Units such as the 229th Aviation Battalion provided immediate, suppressive fire. Gunships cleared tree lines before troops dismounted. They orbited above contact zones. They responded within minutes. Without Huey gunships, close support shifts to faster fixed-wing aircraft or distant artillery. Jets are powerful, but they move quickly and require careful coordination in dense jungle. Artillery is effective, but it demands time and precise targeting data. In ambush, scenarios measured in seconds, delay matters. Command and control also changes. Commanders frequently used Hueys as airborne observation and coordination platforms. From above, they could see terrain, identify unit positions, and redirect forces in real time. Without airborne command posts, leaders rely solely on fragmented radio reports from the ground. Situational awareness declines. Coordination slows. The battlefield becomes less flexible and more reactive. Huey sustained remote firebases across the Central Highlands and beyond. They delivered artillery rounds, food, water, batteries, replacement troops. Without reliable helicopter resupply, firebases must be positioned near roads or rivers. Roads that are mined, roads that are watched. Some remote positions become unsustainable. Strategically, the absence of the Huey forces, a shift toward heavier reliance on ground convoys and static positions. Operations become slower. Search and destroy missions lose speed and surprise. Guerrilla forces regain initiative by choosing when and where to strike. The Huey did not determine the outcome of the Vietnam War, but it reshaped how it was fought. It shortened the distance between contact and reinforcement, between injury and surgery, between isolation and extraction. Without it, the jungle grows larger, the hours grow longer, and the distance between a wound and survival becomes far more difficult to cross. The rotor sound that defined the war becomes silence, and in that silence, the cost most certainly rises.